Hello again and welcome back to DeMona's Movie Corner, where we discuss about movies that I've just happened to see and want to talk about for one reason or another. The first film is Phantom of the Paradise by Brian De Palma. And it's not one of those films that people usually think about when they think about Brian De Palma films. Usually they're referring to Scarface or Carrie or Dress to Kill or something like this. And this is very different. It's a kind of cult film. It's from the year 1974. So it's kind of his early works, and people usually put it on the musical genre, but it's not really an actual musical, because in musical you're supposed to just start singing with no reason. Just explaining your feelings and all that, and in this every song number is actually a song number even in the movie's own universe. It's either a stage play or some pop group playing a song or somebody rehearsing or something like that, so it's actually a song even in the world of the film. But it still works very much like a musical, and people often compare it to Rocky Horror Picture Show. And even though that's a valid comparison, I think a better one would be to the sequel of Rocky Horror Picture Show, The Shock Treatment, which is kind of an underrated film in my opinion, and I like all three of these. But this and Shock Treatment have a lot in common. For example, the kind of study of this kind of show business world, and this world where people are ready to do whatever to get famous, and fame and fortune are kind of the main goals of life and all that stuff. So they have a lot of common in that way. But this is of course done before Shock Treatment, and as you can probably guess if you haven't seen the film from the title, it's a play on the Phantom of the Opera thing, and it also has ideas taken from other classic horror or gothic works such as Dorian Gray or Faust, which is actually a big part of the movie, the story of the man who sells his soul to the devil to kind of get what he wants in life. And the bad guy is played by this person right over here. I don't remember the actor's name, but his name in the movie was Swan, and he also wrote all the songs for the movie, and the soundtrack is really kick-ass. It's one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard. And even though the movie isn't a musical, I would put the soundtrack kind of in the musical zone, because every song kind of reflects the mood of the scene perfectly. Like every time somebody sings something, even though it is a stage play or a concert or a rehearsal or something like that, it always reflects perfectly the kind of mood that they're going for in the moment. And as you can see, probably this is also a Swedish cover on the DVD. Sometimes it's just cheaper to get Swedish covers on DVDs for whatever reason, I don't know why. I guess they just make them more in Sweden because it's a bigger country than Finland. But yeah, definitely check it out. And grade-wise, I'm going to give it the actress Lena Headey with her fingers bandaged out of 73.1.5 stars. Okay, next we have Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, and it's called something else in Finnish, as you can probably see. And I have a very kind of strange relationship with Marvel movies and Marvel in general. Like, I grew up reading comic books. I loved comic books before I had even really discovered film yet. And Marvel was of course big part of that. And I grew up in the 90s. And 90s is kind of maligned these days. People just remember what is that one guy's name? Rob Liefeld, yeah. People just remember Rob Liefeld and all his cronies, the people who imitated him and did like these very stupid things, and people remember the Clone Saga from Spider-Man and all that stuff. But actually 90s was much more than that, and I actually appreciate all the things that they tried to do in the 90s, even though they kind of failed sometimes at doing them. You know, I like things that are a little bit darker and for more adults and have more story elements than the bare minimum. And maybe you can call me an edgy motherfucker if you want, but you know, I don't like those elements when they're done badly, of course. But I think that many things did them very well, and Ghost Rider in the 90s was one of those. It was a really good run for the character in the 90s. Especially when it was drawn by that one guy, I don't remember his name. Mark Texeira, yes. When it was drawn by Mark Texeira, it was at its peak, I feel. And the first movie, of course, didn't capture any of that. And Marvel movies in general, I do kind of like them. Most of them, not all of them, of course. I go to see them whenever they really interest me, if I have the money and if I have the time, but they're by no means kind of a necessity for me to see. And you know, I'm kind of grown tired of them, and that's of course mostly because of the bad films that have existed. The kind of very formulaic things, the things that don't have any surprises and don't, you know, try anything new, that just take the Spider-Man or X-Men formula and kind of do the same thing with some other character. And there's a lot of films like that, and you know, I'm kind of bored of those. And the first Ghost Rider movie, I don't remember when it was made, it was probably in the early 2000s somewhere. That was very much like it, like that. It was just trying to be the same shit as usual, but with just this kind of more gothic character. And it really didn't work because, you know, who wants that? Who wants to see a guy with a skull that's in flames on his head, but, you know, never really doing anything with that? It was so PG-13 that it hurt me. And, you know, this is a bit better, but not by much. It's kind of in the same zone, actually. They still kept Nicolas Cage as the lead character, as you can see. And as I told last time, I really don't have anything particular against Nicolas Cage. I think he's funny and good and relatable when he gets certain type of characters to play. But Ghost Rider, I'm not sure if that's a good character for him, because when Nicolas Cage is in your movie, you really need to let him loose. You really need to let him go and do his thing. And in the first film, he really didn't get to do that. He was just, you know, trying to be Tobey Maguire or somebody. In this film, he's much more in his element, because this is a little bit more kind of outrageous movie. But he's still, because, you know, you need to let him loose, he needs to always be kind of him. So there's very little of Ghost Rider in this movie. It's mostly just Nicolas Cage pulling off funny faces and, you know, yelling at people. And that's of course somewhat entertaining, but it's not really why we go to see this movie, because it's a Ghost Rider movie. You're supposed to see the flamey head Max Skull person kicking demons' ass. I did really like the enemy, though. The kind of main muscly enemy is this guy over here. He can kind of, I don't remember if he's from the comic books, it might be, I haven't read those for a while, but he can kind of decompose things just by touching them. And he was done really well. He was a kind of nice villain. And other than that, they have a lot of interesting characters or interesting actor persons on the movie. They had Christopher Lambert, for whatever reason. He was only in like one scene, and that's strange. Like, why would you put him in one scene of your movie? Then there's Anthony Head, or Anthony Stewart Head. I don't remember which way he goes by these days, and he's one of my favorite actors, but also he doesn't really get to do much of anything. He's just a priest in the beginning. And then there's Ciaran Hinds, who I always remember as Julius Caesar from the HBO's Rome TV series, and he kind of plays the bad guy, so he gets to actually be in the movie. And he does a good job as usual, but for whatever reason they kind of his face goes all wonky in the middle point of the film, so for the rest of the movie he talks like this, and it becomes really kind of irritating and stupid. And actually I had a face like that for a while as well. I had to talk like this, and that was because when I was very young I ate too much tomatoes, like fresh tomatoes straight from the tomato plant, and my mouth wasn't accustomed to that much of tomato acid, so it kind of fucked up my mouth from the inside. So for 3 weeks I talked like this and felt like a complete retard, and you know, that kind of reminds, this movie kind of reminds me of that a little bit, which isn't a good thing. So you know, you take this good actor and you kind of fuck his face up for no particular reason. I guess it had something to do with him being in a human form, like he's some kind of a big demon or devil or somebody like that, and you know, it kind of takes away from the kind of very kind of threatening and strong presence that he otherwise has, because he has to say like this. So it was kind of a strange choice. Look-wise, the movie was okay. It had a lot of CGI in it, but it didn't look stupid like in the first film. It didn't look like a PlayStation 1 animation anymore, so that's good. The skull looked much better than in the first film, but that's, you know, that's just the visual effects, that's not much. So, you know, the movie's story is very simple. You basically have this kind of mother who's pregnant with the devil's child, that's new, and you know, then you have the devil chasing after him because he wants his son, and he actually wants to kind of put himself in his son, like, you know, kind of resurrect himself through his son or something like that. So then of course Nicolas Cage's character Johnny Blaze tries to fight these bad guys off and save the child and all that. And it's very simple, and I have nothing against simple plots. It just wasn't what I was hoping from a Ghost Rider movie. Like, if you read the comic books, and I don't think that movies should like adapt comic books like their holy bible or something like that. I don't think you need to be completely accurate on do things like they were done in the comic books, but goddamn, make them better. You know, make them more suitable for film. You know, in the comics they were very comic-y in a good way. They always had these huge demons and you know, kind of these kind of female demons in skimpy outfits throwing fireballs and all this kind of crazy off-the-wall shit. And you never really have anything like this in these movies. A little bit more in this than in the first one at least. But, you know, it's still no great prize. It's still not one of the best comic book movies. It's an okay film at best. It's watchable, but nothing more. And as a kind of grade, I give it 2 thumbs up my ass, 3 thumbs in my armpits, and 4 thumbs in my ears, falling asleep and having a slumber party. So next we have Piranha, also from the 70s, 1978 it says here, and it's a Joe Dante movie, and I'm sure many people remember Piranha as well, and this also wasn't my first time watching Piranha. I've seen it before, but I decided to rewatch it, and I'm also going to rewatch the sequels, I think, and the remakes. The Piranha is kind of an odd thing in the horror movie franchise world, in that I actually like all the parts of the Piranha series. I like this one, I like the second one, I like the remake, and I also like the sequel to the remake, even though that's kind of the worst one, but it's still not bad. And this first movie is really on its own. It's very its own style. It's not kind of so exploitation-y as the second film is or the remake, but it's still really fun. And I don't know how they always do that in the 70s, well, not always, but often. That in the 70s they managed to make movies interesting even if not that much happens in them. And I don't think they ever managed to do movies like that nowadays or anywhere like after or before the 70s. Like, not much actually happens in this film, but it's still really kind of entertaining and funny. The piranhas, like, you think they're like some great animatronic effect or something, but actually they're just these kind of rubbery fish that are tied on strings and kind of pulled along, and it's really, really kind of funny. And whenever you cut into the fish, there's always this sound effect going on and all that. It's mainly about this kind of guy who's lost his wife, or whose wife has divorced him, and this kind of reporter woman who kind of gets mixed up in this piranha thing. They actually release the piranhas in the beginning, and then they try to, you know, make good of their mistake. But there's not really all that much, like, you know, action, excitement or any of that, but it's still kind of entertaining, and it's really funny. The dialogue with the characters is written very funnily, and it's just a nice watch. And it also has Barbara Steele in it, and she plays this kind of army scientist woman or something like that, and she comes to kind of try to control the situation and all that. So it's a good watch, and I like as I said, I like all the Piranha movies, so maybe I'll watch the second one for the next video or something like that. Yeah. And lastly, we have the last movie of this time, and it's called Patti Rocks. And Patti may rock, but this movie really sucks, man. I mean, it has a tagline: just when you thought sex was no laughing matter. And I've always thought that sex was, as with everything, sex was always a laughing matter, but I'm not sure after watching this movie. And it's an 80s movie, it's 1987, and I really like most of 80s comedies. I think they're really outrageous and funny most of the time, and kind of childish, but I don't mind that as long as, you know, they're just kind of silly in a good way and kind of offensive way in some ways as well. This was nothing like that really, or anything else. Like, I tried to describe the movie. The first half of the movie feels like if Clerks was written by a 12-year-old who's just heard about sex for the first time. You know, so that the characters, they talk a lot about sex and sexual things and this kind of relationship stuff, and it's very outrageous, but there's really no jokes in it. It's just people mentioning dicks and vaginas and, you know, licking pussy and all that stuff, and that's like supposed to be automatically funny when it isn't. And it's about these two dudes who, one of whom has made this girl pregnant, and they're going to the nearest town to find the woman and kind of try to convince her to have an abortion, because the guy who knocked her up also has a wife and a child and all that stuff. So they're trying to, he doesn't want, you know, two families and all that stuff. And then the first half of the movie is just they're getting there, and of course they're like drinking and all that stuff, and, you know, just shooting shit while driving there. And there's like one scene where one of the characters loses all his clothes except his underpants and his jacket, because a dying skunk squirted smelly liquid on them. And you know, then he like gets real pissed off, I think, or maybe his friend gets real pissed off, and they just go on the side of the road to make snowballs, and you follow them making snowballs, and then like this, like a rich lady in a fur coat and all that, drives next to them and is like, oh, those two guys, I definitely want to have sex with them and stuff. Like, you're like, why? They're two grown men sitting in their underpants in the snow making snowballs, and then they just start screaming at the woman for no reason, and it's just like, what is even happening here? This makes no sense. So then the next half of the movie, they find a woman who is pictured here, the woman whom the movie is named after. She's also here, and this is one of the assholes in his underpants. And they find her, and then it just, it forgets it's a comedy altogether. It doesn't even try to be funny after that. It just, it goes straight to the Sex and the City territory, where they just blather on and on and on about their feelings and about their families and about, why you should get abortion, why she doesn't want to get an abortion, and why all this stuff is happening. Like, it's literally like watching The Bold and the Beautiful or some shit. And nothing gets done, nothing gets resolved. They leave there with the exact same situation than when they came in. Nothing gets resolved, nothing gets gets done, and it's really annoying. And they just go on and on and on, and then the woman decides to have sex with not the guy who knocked her up, but the other guy. And of course the guy who knocks her up gets like really jealous and starts like screaming about and yelling about, and it's just annoying as fuck. It's not funny at all, in the least. And you really could have had a nice movie from these kind of ideas, but from these situations. You really didn't need much. You just needed somebody to actually write some jokes or funny situations or something in there that could kind of at least try to be funny. And they just forgot to do that for whatever reason. So yeah, then they all just eat cereal and then the guys leave. And that's the end of the movie. I don't know. Yeah, that's I don't know what else to say about the movie. And I just remembered I didn't give a grade to the last movie, Piranha, and I think that joke has kind of run its course, so I don't know if I should do that anymore. But whatever of these films you watch, don't fucking watch this. This is just piece of shit. And a couple of months ago I bought this big load of VHS cassettes, like really random shit. And I like to watch random shit from the 80s and 70s and so on, because even though like 99% of it is just bullshit like this, every now and again you just find something really hilarious or awesome, or some forgotten gem. And a lot of my favorite movies are found that way, but this isn't one of them. This is the other 99%. Just depressive crap from beginning to finish. It's just nothing, man. It's not even a movie. It's like, what the fuck is this? Why does this exist? And even the name, like, I realized the girl is called Patti Rocks even in the movie, but it's also the title of the film. Nothing rocks in this movie. There's like no... I can't find a less rocking movie than this, It's just boring and pointless and meaningless. And don't get me wrong, I also have nothing against asshole main characters, but they still need to be interesting. They still need to do something. There needs to be some reason to care about them, and this movie offers me none of those things. So really no score for this. No points. Go home and try again, I guess. So okay, this is a movie corner for today, this morning, whatever time you're watching this. If you're watching this, if you aren't, then I might as well be talking to the walls, I guess. But whatever. Next time I'll be back because I really enjoy doing these, and next time I'll be wearing a silly hat because why wouldn't I be? Okay, bye. Go away. Thumb up the film, video, fuck, shit. Put a thumbs up and comment and like and favorite and share and all that. Show your mother this. Show this to your mother. She'll remember some of these movies, I'm sure. Show this to your mother and your brother and your sister and your dead grandfather. Okay, bye bye. Probably wouldn't, because